What's up, you guys? I wanted to make a special video today on my absolute favorite book of all time, the Magdalen Manuscript by Tom Kenyon and his partner Judy Sion. And the second line here is the Alchemies of Horus, which are 5 Tantric meditations, and the Sex Magic of Isis. It's about this thick. If you know, you know already. But this book was the catalyst for everything. My relationship journey, my YouTube channel. I was using the meditations actually from this book right before I launched my YouTube around conscious relationship twin flame material back in like end of 2015, I believe. And so this book to me just was a game changer. And interestingly enough, every time that I come back to this book, because I've read it many times over the years, every time I come back to it, I take something new because I'm in a different place, because my own consciousness has been shifting and evolving. So, and I just remember like the way that I read it in the beginning, it still moved me. It was really touching, but then I lived more and I had other experiences that I was able to weave in. And then when I came back to it, I was like, holy shit. Because then I had lived more of the stuff that was in the book and it made more sense. So this book is super special. I find that the people that feel drawn to the energy of Mary Magdalene, you know, I use this oracle deck in my readings. It's the Divine Feminine Oracle. It has Mary on the cover. Or if you have this like pull to ancient Egypt, like I remember being a kid, because this made no sense to me logically, but I had a real fascination with Egypt, and I was very drawn to the symbol of the Ankh, which is like the circle, and then I have it on my altar, but anyways, Google it, the Ankh, the symbol of eternal life, and it's also like the merging of the feminine and masculine energy. It's like the union. I had earrings, I had a necklace. I just remember wanting to wear that symbol, but of course I had no like logical explanation for that. Just intuitively I felt drawn to it. And so, you know, when I learned more about the goddess Isis and the mystery schools of Isis and the sort of sacred sexuality teachings of Isis, I was like, oh my God, you know, I'd always felt pulled to the priestess archetype, to sacred sexuality, to obviously sacred partnership. That's my whole business journey and personal journey. So, and it's all, you know, it's an ongoing thing. This isn't like, oh, you hit a destination. Even if you're single and you're on this journey, you know, I did so many of these practices and I was like fresh out of a relationship. I was on my own and I grew so much doing a lot of these things alone. But then if you're in relationship, it's like another layer. It's another level of it's a more advanced spiritual practice actually, because when you're in a relationship, the other person's there mirroring you constantly 24 hours a day and there's nowhere to run, so you have to face yourself and your stuff. And if you're doing it in a conscious way and you're in a conscious partnership, because we hear that as a buzzword, but are you actually practicing that way? Because it requires like radical responsibility. You just have to basically take ownership of your shit every single day. And of course there's all the beautiful parts, but I feel like it's romanticized, but people leave out the parts where it's like, it's really just, it's a mirror. You hear it, but when you're living it, it's not as easy, and sounds good in theory. In practice, it requires exactly that, practice. And it also requires devotion, unwavering devotion. Like a pillar, like a rock, like a mountain, like unmoving. And to choose love when somebody hurts you, or, you know, and don't take that literally because that's nuanced. Like, we're not talking about staying in situations that are like physically hurtful or anything like that. We're talking about your kind of ego and the layers of personality stuff that are going to be like dross burning away. Like this mud almost that you need. Like the lotus grows in mud. It grows in the filth, in the mud. And that's where it blossoms, because that is the spiritual practice, you know. And I'm Buddhist, so on top of that, it's like I study Tibetan Buddhism. So, and the serendipity that I didn't realize until last year was that Tom Kenyon, who is the author of this book, sound healer, scientist, he's got like both spectrums covered, because he's got that like logical brain, that's how he started, and then he's got this like really amazing intuitive side that he is able to channel, and he just feels like a very clear channel to me, because there's people out there that do not feel like clear channels. It is what it is. But he's probably one of the teachers on this path that I've learned to respect the most, and I've taken a lot of his courses, and I've learned a ton. So he's pretty incredible. And if you haven't watched it, there is a free, you have to find it because they changed the links a few times, but he has a documentary about him called Song of the New Earth, and it is, I probably watched it like 7 times already. Song of the New Earth. And it's his story. And then Judy, the one he wrote the book with, is also in the documentary. And it's really powerful. If I can find the link, I'll put it below. Otherwise, maybe you can look it up. And so basically, inside this book, it's sort of divided into 3 sections. So the first section of the book is, it's about 70 pages of channeled. So Tom Kenyon was basically in a channeling state. He was lying down, he was just receiving this download, this transmission from Mary Magdalene. And he was traveling while he was writing this book with his partner. So in certain places that they stopped, Judy would ask him, like, do you want to channel Mary today? And he would feel into it and say yes or no. Like, if he felt like it was coming, and if not, it was a no. So the first, like I said, about 70, 80 pages are that. And she's getting into her personal account of her relationship experience, some of the actual practice of the sex magic of Isis, right? Etc. I'll leave it to you to read it if you haven't already. The first time I read it, I cried. It just, those things that just hit you so close to the heart. You're like, wow, I just knew, like, this is it. This is the path. This is it. This encompasses so much. Then the second part of the book is more technical, so that's where Tom is getting into some theological stuff about like different mystical lineages, and then he goes into the 5 alchemies of Horus, or these 5 tantric meditations, and he describes them. When I teach from the book, I have his recorded meditations that I use, and he even weaved in like sounds of the Magdalene and different frequencies into those actual meditations, because he's a sound healer too. So I use his original meditations, and I share those with you guys when we do the practices. And lastly, in the book, the last part of this book is Judy's, it says every woman's story, basically. So Judy's talking about her life path, and she really went through some difficult experiences, especially with men. And the way her and Tom come together is really magical. Again, I won't ruin it for you if you haven't read the book. And so, like I said, it's just really profound. And I love to use this book as a guideline, like as a framework for some of the sacred relationship practice, because the meditations are so powerful, and because the other material in this book all kind of weaves together and forms this this pathway, right? And it's like you find this book when you're meant to find it. You might have it on your shelf and you didn't read it yet. I feel that you receive it when you're supposed to, you read it when you're supposed to, and then you come back to it when you're supposed to. And so, because I've got, for example, the last year, I've been kind of trialing different things. I was just curious, like, what if I pivot in a little bit of a different direction? What if I do this other thing? And I'll be honest with you guys, like, it doesn't matter what I do. I always get directed back to this material. Not just this book specifically, but the Magdalene path, and I got also the tattoo. I got a rose. You can't really see. I got the rose on my arm as another reminder. I have one day at a time here for when I was having my breakdowns era of like, I need a mantra, one day at a time. And then I got a rose because the rose is associated with Magdalene and this path of the feminine way. It's very much like a spiral, It's not just for women, but I like working with women around some of this material in regards to union and doing women's work together in group, because there is an alchemy that happens when women come together in an intimate space that I feel personally, especially for the type of women that are drawn to me, which tend to be women that have a hard time opening up with other women. It's really important for your relationship path that you learn to be vulnerable with women. in a like a grounded, centered way. And like I said, that was a big part of my healing, and it really radically transformed my relationship with men. But first I had to get into that like feminine wounding. We've all got usually some kind of flavor of it, but I find that the women that are attracted to me, but also a little bit triggered by me, are the ones that want to really feel like they might be kind of alpha, or like I said, you might have a resistance to forming close relationships with women, or maybe you've had a lot of difficulty maintaining relationships with women, or you're just avoidant in general of relationship, of intimacy. You don't date, maybe you don't have a lot of close friends. Like, those are the people that tend to be attracted to me, because I was always more of a loner, you know? And I still kind of am, but my heart's much more open. And so my relationships are much deeper and more profound. But I will admit, I don't have a big circle, but that's why the work I do is exactly the same. It's small and intimate, and the group settings are small and intimate. And I like to do one-on-one long-term, because it's mentorship. Mentorship is not like coaching. Mentorship is like, I've been doing this for over a decade, and so I can show you like the way based on what I've experienced, and also help you with your blind spots. And like, mentoring is a long-term thing usually. It's not like a hit it and quit it. And I'm not that type of girl. I'm not a one-night stand type of chick. I'm not a fast fix. It's not about that. I'm about long-term devotion. So that's really what this is all about. So I am hosting. It's finally divine timing. I was trialing a bunch of other things, and I kept hearing the message to come back to this book starting last December, and it's almost been a year. And I did resist it at times, because we're human, you know what I mean? I also have ego. Like, there are times when I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. I want to do other things. But this lights me up, and honestly, like I said, with all the other cumulative work that's been done with you guys, some of you that have worked with me closely in Rose Temple for the 2 years I ran that, or the Return of Venus immersion that I did, which by the way is in my store if you want. If you're not ready for like a deeper immersion or a one-to-one, just know that that is available in my store. And it's a 5-week self-paced, sacred, feminine embodiment course. And it's really, really amazing. Like, we dive into a lot of the principles that I'm going to do in the immersion I'm hosting now, but it will be self-paced. You can do it at your own pace, so you don't have to do it in 5 weeks. And it's a great introduction, like if you're not ready for this. And that's fine if you're not ready, because you've got to get ready, you know? I also have a bundle called The Vow and Fully Claimed, which are also like, they're just audios. They're each about an hour long, or 30, 40 minutes to an hour. And that's also a great like first step if you're curious, you're kind of intrigued about all of this, but you're not maybe ready for a full experience. But for those of you that have been wanting to do something like this, or you've been really intrigued with the book, and you do want a deeper experience, I'm hosting a 6-week immersion, because we're going to use the 5 meditations from this book. We're going to use one meditation. It's going to be a light touch. You could work with this book for years. I've been working with this book since 14. So it's not like you're going to go through it all and that's it. It's like, I'm going to introduce these concepts, and we're going to use the meditations. We're going to gather in a small group, so that will form its own little alchemy, because whoever comes together, it's always the perfect group for all the women inside. Everybody needs to be together for some reason. Depending on what comes up for people, it's always divinely organized. And also, we'll have a week of like intro kind of integration, and then we'll get into the meditations, and you'll get to work with one meditation per week, right? So you'll get to feel into this. And then I'm going to weave in each week teachings on relationship, on union, on even some Tibetan Buddhist practices for relationship stuff that I'm going to weave in. So all the details are at the link. I put the link to the page below. And there's an application. It is absolutely by application. This is not for beginners. If you've worked with me before, it would be a good fit. You know, if you've been in one of my programs, or we work together a little more closely. But you might be ready for it, you know what I mean? Even if we've never worked together. So you'll know through the application if it feels right. And like I said, it's going to be really small. I only want maximum 5 women. So if this is calling you, come. I really feel that, like I said, when I meditate, I have Mary on my altar, and I ask her every day. I'm like, how do you want me to move? Like, use me as a vessel. And this is where I'm being guided to go back to. And I know why, like on a deeper level, I really do. And the right people always find it at the right time. So if that is you, check out the link below. It's called the Magdalen Mysteries, and all the rest of the details are on the page or in the application. But obviously, if you have any questions, you can email me. I'll also put my email below. And yeah, that's it. I just wanted to make a special video about this and introduce it to you guys and talk about it, because again, sometimes just hearing Mary Magdalene is intriguing. People are like, why do I feel this draw, this pull to this? I can't explain it. It's okay. Like, you don't need to know logically. You don't. A lot of this path, you guys, the feminine path, we can call it sacred feminine journey, like, it's not logical. It's like oracular. It's you're an oracle, and you're learning to really strengthen your intuitive connection and strengthen your devotion and devote yourself to love completely. Like, this is for a woman who wants to devote herself completely to love. And that's an ask that will be like a soul calling. But those are my people. So I work with this book with men, but I work with it a little bit differently with men, and I prefer to do it with men in a one-to-one setting. So I just had a client now who's going to come back for another container soon, and we worked with these meditations, but then, you know, we do other things together as well. So if you're a man and you want to work with me on this, I do have long-term mentorship spaces. And if you're a first-time client, we would have to work together for a year. Like, I would ask for a year-long commitment, and then 6 months for those that are repeat clients. And I do have male clients that are one-to-one clients. So, but women's work, the group stuff is like a different kind of energetic and a different type of healing that happens. And both are important, you know, one-to-one and group have their different benefits. So that's it. Love you guys. If you feel called, check out the application, and I'll talk to you guys soon.